today we're on a little bit of field trip. We're at 14740 Glencairn Road, and this is for the new agent training number 14. And this is to get you guys comfortable with showing property as a seller's agent, as well as doing open houses. Okay. So anytime that you're bringing buyers through to a property, whether they're represented or not, try to make it a point where you're accompanying all the showings. That's for a number of reasons. It's for the fact that you can represent your seller properly. You can provide a little bit more security going through the showings. You can make sure that the house is in the best presentable condition that it can. And most importantly, you're also able to see the buyer, meet him, understand a little bit about where he's coming from, get a little bit of information, and read the nonverbal signs as he's going through and taking a look at the property. If the buyer is really interested and ultimately decides to make an offer, but as they're going through and saying, hey, oh my God, I love these curtains, I absolutely have to have it, and sometimes even buyers will say, they'll drop the bomb and say, hey, I think this property is worth easily this price, and I could certainly see myself getting more. You can, guess what, you then almost have an obligation to provide that information to the seller, and will ultimately help potentially maximize the amount for the seller at the end of the day at the best terms possible. It puts them in a little bit of a better negotiating position. So whenever you're showing properties, make sure you make an effort to get there before the buyer's side. Again, it gives you a chance to sort of go through the property, make sure that it's in the best condition, best showing condition. Make sure that all the lights are on. We already did this going through this property here. As you walk through, you'll see all the lights are on. All the shades that we can actually open, they're open as well to let as much light in as possible. And there's some that can't open. This is a foreclosure property, so there's some things like that where we can't really avoid, but ultimately we're making it in the best showing presentation possible. Make sure any pets are also secured, and obviously just any messes that the seller might have left or even not really thought of, just sort of tuck them away, make a quick correction before ultimately getting those buyers through. Okay. As a seller's agent, you're familiar with the property, but remember to have all those disclosure information available and ready to discuss. When doing so, I'm going to show you guys what I usually do in the kitchen, and this is quite common with what I do for open houses as well. But I'll always have my property-led disclosures. I'll have any of my seller's disclosures in my showing book here, and I'll have it turned to the page so that if if a buyer has a question about the presence of letter or a seller's a disclosure regarding say how old the roof is, I have all that information easily right here where I can just turn to it and say, here you go, Mr. Buyer, take a look at this, read it. This is what the seller is saying is the condition of the house. So as we're going through, I'm going to just walk you through again as the seller's agent. Pay attention. I want you to pay attention to a couple of key things. Don't state when you walk into a room, hey guys, this is the kitchen. No, obviously it's a kitchen. Point to sort of the unique things. Okay, look at this. Here's a Lazy Susan. It goes all the way back. Great for all your storage needs. Granite countertops. These are updated in year I don't know when. Appliances. All of them are in functional order. This one, has an excellent ice maker. Spruce it up a little bit like that. So don't just state the obvious. Another big thing, let the buyers walk around at their own pace. You want to follow them around, and you do not want to be in the middle of the room like I am right now. You want to sort of be off on the side, like this, and a buyer will be able to walk through on their own, okay? Anytime that you're right in the middle of the room, you're actually making the room look smaller a little bit, and you're also sort of changing around the flow at which a buyer could go. So remember, just sort of stand off in the corner, and then let the buyer walk through and follow them around. So now we're going to continue on into sort of this beautiful living room dining room. Of course, you have this beautiful chandelier. Now, note with chandeliers, guys, a very fancy chandelier like this may or may not stay with the property, depending on whether the seller is interested in holding on to it. If the seller is planning on holding on to it, right now it is considered real property, so it needs to be written into the listing that it's excluded from the sale, so that there is no confusion when the buyer comes in and purchases the property and they find a chandelier missing. Where did the chandelier go? That needs to be stated up front. It also needs to be mentioned in the offer to protect your sellers as well. So again, I'm walking through, I'm following the buyers. Beautiful open concept here. Double doors on the entry. The doorbell, I don't know if you noticed when you rang it, but it had some really cool chimes. beautiful crown moldings and whatnot, or baseboard moldings, I should say, things like that. So again, we're following around. We'll continue on into the master suite over here. This is kind of where you'll want to stop here. The buyer will continue on, have a look at the room, understand what it is. They might, comment. Obviously, homes that are unfurnished are easier to show. However, usually when homes are staged, though, they will actually generate a little bit more cash when ultimately selling. Okay, so that's sort of the master bedroom. We're assuming the seller or we're assuming the buyer likes it, and it's just walking pretty quickly as well. If you want to continue this way, down this way is you can find the master bathroom, as well as the beautiful walk-in closets there as well. Back there you'll find a beautiful jacuzzi tub, a walk-in shower as well, and a very interesting glass barrier to the toilet and to the bidet. So very fancy. Now, from here I'll show you some of the bedrooms as well, and we'll talk about some of the disclosures that I need to mention about those. Now this particular property, we don't know if this is the case, but in pre-screening the property, assuming as a buyer's agent, this would draw some questions if I were a buyer's agent, but follow me. There's a garage outside. We didn't see any entry inside into the house. We noticed a wall at the end here that was looks like it might have been put up as drywall here. This could be an illegal addition, and in fact, our notes on the listing sheet here do indicate that that the property does have some violations and they need to be corrected. So this could be one of them. As a seller's agent, I would know that information. I would tell them about it. But again, that's listed. We're not necessarily the buyer's agent. This isn't our listing, so we don't have that information. So you can have a look into this one of the bedrooms down here. Again, we're not sure if this is a legal bedroom or not, but this is what the property is. And we have additional bedrooms here, and then at the end of the hall as well. We'll kind of skip through that and just yes. We'll head on outside here as well. Again, let the buyers go out first. And again, point out the fact, beautiful swimming pool. It was last lined in 2010 or whenever it was. You will notice there might have been some settling here. As you can see, this back little addition potentially might have been put on illegally or legally, but there's certainly some settling that you're seeing there. The property was built in the 1980s, so some of that is expected, but if you want more information on it, the seller is not aware if it's active settling. You should get a structural inspection to verify whether that is the case there. Okay, so let's head on back in. It's South Florida in June and it's hot. Now, that's sort of how you would show as a seller's agent. Again, you're constantly reading the buyers as you're going through the property, identifying the pieces that they like, that they didn't like, and essentially you're selling the property to them. Well, what if, if they don't, say like the paint or something? Well, as a seller's agent, you're going to say something like, well, the paint, if changing the paint or changing the color of the walls is the easiest thing to renovate in a home, and it ultimately adds the most value with the least amount of cash going into it. So the paint isn't a big issue. Tiles, they could use a little bit of scrubbing down, but again, let's look at the bigger picture. What do you think of the overall house, the layout, the condition of the house, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of a seller showing now. Going into the open house phase, we're going to talk about a couple of unique things that you should probably do. Now, in the packet that you have, there is a template for an open house sheet as well. It's not in mine actually, but it's in all of yours as buyer's agents here. Coming into the kitchen. Now again, when I'm showing open houses, I will always have the open house sign-in sheet. And now this is an important sheet. Before you start the open house, you always want to fill out that top line. completely and as fully as possible. So you want to have the name, you want to have the phone number, email address, as well as how do you find the open house, okay? The reason for that is buyers follow other buyers. So if you have a partially filled in top line, good chance that the next buyer is not going to provide all that information. So if that first line is completely filled out, psychologically, more likely than not, buyers are going to completely fill it out. Oftentimes they won't leave a number just for, they don't want to give those out. But again, constantly remind them that, the seller needs to know who's coming through their house. We need to have all contact information. So if they don't leave it, ask if I could please kindly have your number, write it in, fill it out. If the open house is busy and for whatever reason you don't have that information, after those people leave and when it's a quiet time, fill in that number and then just shade a little box in, just showing that it's not a real number. But again, you want to keep that open house sheet as fully as possible so that as new people are coming through, they're filling it out as much as they can. In addition to that, as you're walking around showing the property and any comments that you find with buyers, whether they're represented, if they're represented, you are going to be writing notes about how they liked it, some of the key points to them. What I do is on the back of it. So, papers you can kind of see through. So if this first buyer really liked the property but wasn't quite sure, he needs to talk to the wife, I would write buyer like property, and not sure, follow up with agent, in 24 hours. Now, if you have an unrepresented buyer, one very important thing that you should always have with your open houses is a couple extra listings, okay? Ultimately, if they don't like this house, you can still ultimately find them potentially another house. So have a couple listings that are very similar to this, say built in the 1980s, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, and say, hey, if you like this property, I'll schedule a showing for you right after this open house. Let me just make a quick phone call, I'll get you in. Start building that relationship, get that appointment right away so that they start working with you and ultimately you have a better chance of closing with that particular buyer, okay? Also, again, make sure that you're taking notes of what those buyers are interested. So if you're going around talking to them and you're sort of qualifying them as you go. How long have you guys been looking? Are you working with a real estate agent? How many bedrooms are you looking for? What communities are you looking for? All those things you can then write on the back of the open house sheet so that when you get back to your office, when you're going through the follow-up on Monday morning, you can make a phone call, say, hey, I found these 3 properties over in Miami Lakes. I'd love to introduce them to you. Why don't you come to my office? I'll walk you through the selling process. Walk you through the buying process. We'll be able to ultimately start looking to help you find the home of your dreams that much quicker. Okay, so that's a little bit about open houses, guys. When open houses are really busy, you want to try to maintain and monitor as many people as you can. If you know that an open house is going to be extremely busy, like for example, if you price the property below market value and you've already got a lot of calls on it, don't be scared to bring another agent from your office in to sort of help guide people around. In extreme cases, I've been to open houses where there have been 250 people coming through, and you'd actually you'd have a line outside to sort of monitor the number of people, keep it manageable, and make sure that nothing is out of hand or being stolen or anything like that. Especially if a property does have furniture in the cellars and completely moved out of. If the property is a little bit less busy at times, take a buyer who walks through. If there's only one buyer, give them that sort of personal showing. Walk them through as if you were showing them, with a regular appointment with a buyer and their agent. Okay. If you're a seller's agent and working with a property that is tenanted, okay, these properties oftentimes are not always the easiest properties to show because tenants, as we all know, think they own the property and aren't always the most cooperative people. There are ways, though, to ultimately build rapport with a tenant and try to get in. A couple key things that you want to do: bulk all the showings at one time. Let the tenant know instead of showing properties at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock on Monday afternoon. I'm going to have everyone come in between the time of 3 and 3:30 to minimize the hassle on you. Okay. In addition to that, if you find that they're not cooperating at all, buy them movie passes. Tell them, in the afternoon, look, I'm gonna get you movies to go watch Independence Day, okay? But I'm gonna do this for you, but you gotta give me, an hour and a half with the house so that I can bring buyers through. Your landlord will appreciate it. The tenant will appreciate it, of course. And again, you're more likely going to be able to have access to the property by doing so. Any other strategies, as you come up with, certainly. Create your own, of course. With tenanted properties, in your folder here as well, you're always going to want to have a copy of the lease, information about the tenants, rent rolls, etc. So that if a buyer per se decides he needs that information, again, you have it already available from the landlord. You're upfront about it, and you can provide it to them immediately. Now, realtor safety is very important, guys. Accompanied showings, you want to always try to screen your buyers who are coming through. Now, with buyers agents, of course, you want to make sure that they're actually buyers agents. So look them up in the MLS, verify their credentials. With an unrepresented buyer, always try to meet in the office first. Now, there's many reasons for this. By getting them into the office, you're more likely to ultimately close the deal because you're bringing them into your space. You're introducing them to the whole buying process. You can bring them in and show them properties on the MLS and get a better idea of the characteristics that they're looking for, and then drive over to the property. Now, before you ultimately leave your office, let the office administrator, let myself, let your manager know that you're going to be going out to property 123 Main Street in Miami Lakes. Okay, that way you're accountable, and if anything per se happens, people will know where to find you and how to access you. Rather than just deciding to meet a buyer at a property. Okay. The National Association of Realtors has created 100 tips for realtor safeties. I can provide that information for you if you'd like. The link is on the sheet that you guys have in front of you. And actually, one thing that I didn't mention, surprisingly, throughout this whole conversation, make sure you guys have listing sheets, of course, when you're showing properties. Okay. You're going to want to print out the full report with the agent's information for yourself, usually a copy of the public records and any other additional information. Property disclosures, the public record is always a good thing. For this particular property, I printed that out, and the public record is a great storyteller for a property. With this particular property, this is off the CRS database in the MLS, and you can't read it, but you'll see back in 2006 there was a mortgage and a second mortgage that was originated, totaling over $750,000. Now, this home is not worth $750,000. It is only listed at $520,000. So that's pretty much the story that it tells. The property is owned by Deutsche Bank. They're going to be the servicers. They're going to be the people in contact from the seller's side. So all good information to have. Buyers are curious. They like to know this information. And by you presenting this to buyers, whether you're working as a buyer's agent or as a seller's agent, it shows that you're educated. It shows you know what you're talking about, and ultimately builds a little bit of trust, energy,